And we are back. Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We are, it's Friday.
Finally.
Yes, finally it's Friday, and this will be our final show of the year.
Yes.
Because,
closing out 2018 strong.
Yes, I'm going on a little West Coast adventure for the next couple of weeks, and we'll be back on the 4th of January. In the new year. So, so I guess we'll make the best of it because we've got a crazy topic tonight. But before we get to that, we've got a couple of bottles of wine. Let's introduce the co-stars of the show.
Yes, indeed. So these are interesting. Both of them scored over 90 with Wine Spectator, I believe. The first one is from Argentina. It's 2015, and we believe it's a blend. I need to actually look it up. Clos de los Siete.
Okay.
Siete.
There we go.
That's that one.
All righty.
And I got to say, it's pretty good. I agree with your comment that it would be excellent as sangria wine.
Yes. Oh, no, it's perfect. It's perfect sangria wine. No doubt about that.
But it's also good by itself. I mean, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good way to start it out for sure.
The next one is Gran Barassa Chateau Tenuta.
Okay.
Shiraz, 2015.
This is you said Argentinian?
This one is from Australia.
Australia.
Yeah,
Shiraz is Australian. That's right.
Yeah, the first was Argentinian. This one is Australian.
Actually, Shiraz is Persian. It's Iranian. It's a region of Iran. Shiraz region. But I guess the grapes grow very well in Australia. So nice. Australian wineries have become known for that. If people want to become wine sponsors, you can do that very easily. We have a deal with Winc.com. That's WINC.com. You can go to vinarmani.com/wine. It will take you right to Winc and have you all set up. If you want to fill out their little quiz, the palate quiz, even if you just go and fill out the palate quiz, it'll tell you what kinds of wines you will probably like if you're not a wine connoisseur, so that's pretty useful. Then you can get $20 off joining their wine club, or you can just go and do what we would like you to do, which is go and get a gift certificate. Just send it over to show@vinarmani.com, and we will choose our wines, have them shipped out to us. You don't have to worry about anything, and be sure to include a nice little note, and we will shout you out on the air and enjoy your wine. Get a bottle for yourself, and we can enjoy it together. So that's vinarmani.com/wine. Okay. So tonight's topic, do you want to introduce this because this was your idea, your topic?
We have a lot to talk about. And we're not just, obviously every week we talk about so many different things. This time we're actually going into it with two topics. I think they're somewhat related. But yeah, in general, one, the fall of Tumblr, and two, the decline of men. We are literally watching the end of masculinity in our lifetime. And, it's not just a cis-normative thing that, guys are uncomfortable, like old white guys are uncomfortable, that, whatever. It's not that. There are actual scientific studies that are showing that we are declining much more quickly now than we ever have in the past.
But to be fair, we probably couldn't study it exactly this way in the past. I have this feeling like maybe this is part of the decadent part of a culture. What is so the saying is, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times.
Perfect.
And I feel like that's where I think things are way too easy.
Yeah.
There's too much abundance.
Yep.
And so maybe abundance is perhaps a good jumping off point because we're talking about the first topic that we had was Tumblr removing adult content, which is abundant on Tumblr.
Yeah, it makes up like 30% of their traffic.
They're removing it altogether starting on the 17th.
Yep.
Now, I had seen this news, and then when I posted that we were doing this as the show today, somebody on Twitter responded to me and said, oh, well, here's the reason why. And so I went and read this article. So supposedly, now I think that this is, you can tell me whether or not you think this is an excuse or a reason. I think it looks more like an excuse because corporations don't move this fast. And Tumblr was sold to Yahoo for, I think, $1.1 billion.
Yeah. And then like 2 years later, Yahoo had to write down almost 800 million of that. And it's, they lost value very, very quickly. And this all occurred years ago.
Right.
And then Yahoo and Tumblr were acquired by Verizon and their Oath division.
Yes.
So it is not the company that it was by any stretch.
Right. So supposedly the catalyst for this removal was that the Tumblr app was pulled from, I believe it was the Apple store.
Yep.
And what they said was that, I don't know whether it was images, an image, I think it was an image as I read it, that there was a child porn image that somehow made it through their filters that they have, somehow showed up. Someone was doing an audit, I guess, on Apple's side. This is it's so convoluted, and it's so hard for me to believe as somebody in the industry to be like, yeah, I mean, code audits, yes, but content audits, I don't even know how that would be done. But so supposedly somebody saw it, they removed it. Mm-hmm. So there are a few things, and I think that we could probably talk about that, because I think that just in and of itself is interesting to just break down what something like that might even look like. But what I found buried in this story that I found interesting that I didn't know existed, the most interesting part was they said, well, yeah, what we do is there is and they didn't name it by name, but they said there is some sort of industry database mm-hmm. that has all of the child porn images.
Yes.
And so what we do is every image that comes up, we match it with the machine learning algorithms and against something in the database, and this wasn't in the database.
Right. So you run into that with when the database is outdated. It's a law enforcement database, basically. So what they do is they hash all the files, and they compare that against the hashes of the files that are uploaded, because when you have a site that is seeing millions of new images uploaded mm-hmm. a day, you can't have a person, especially when you only have 400 employees,
sure.
you can't really have a person sitting there looking at every image. So what they do is they take all of the known pornography, they hash it, they compare the file signatures against what's being uploaded, and if it's a known image, then it gets blocked. But new images aren't going to be in there.
No,
and neither and depending on the sophistication of the person uploading,
right,
and if you manipulate the image in a way that's not destroying the image from a human visibility, because mm-hmm. remember, humans, when we see things, it's not in the precise detail that computers see things.
Right.
So if a computer sees,
you could flip it and crop it and change the colors,
a little bit, yep. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You could actually replace, every 8th pixel with something completely different, and human beings wouldn't know.
Sure. Yeah.
But computers would, and they wouldn't catch it.
Right.
So there's a million ways to fool the database. And this applies to everything. This isn't just a child porn thing. This is...
Well, they do this with copyright, with music, with images. I mean, that's how
viruses.
Same
thing with viruses.
Yeah.
This is why virus companies are publishing, once a day at minimum.
Right.
Sometimes a couple times a day, new updates to the signature files, because it changes so quickly.
Right.
These guys were either using an out-of-date database, or the database they were supplied by law enforcement was...
well, that's what they said. This particular image just wasn't I guess it was a new image. Mm-hmm. Now, what's weird to me about this is, so in terms of understanding how a mobile app works, there's no content on the mobile app.
No,
that's what people have to understand.
Yeah.
Is that the mobile app just has your API endpoints, the endpoints that your phone is going to call out. But it's only going to call out the endpoints that are related to your particular usage of it. So, for instance, my Twitter app on my phone has never made API calls for 99% of the content, including the profiles and all of this that's on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's
and all the porn
and all of that. You know what I mean? So the same thing goes for Tumblr. So this idea of Apple's doing a content audit that runs across their entire platform, you know, unless they have, God, I just don't think that's what's happening. Something sounds wrong to me in that story. It doesn't sound right.
Here's what it also sounds completely wrong to me.
Okay, good. I'm glad that it's not just me. Yeah.
But here's where, you know, like what stood out to me in their announcement was female presenting nipples. They specifically call that out as something that will be blocked.
Is that only biological females?
That's the problem, right?
Especially with Tumblr, I think.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking biology. We're talking enhanced, folks who were born with male parts.
Yeah.
Who then later have surgery to change their parts.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Look, there are athletic female athletes who, for all intents and purposes, may not have any body fat in this entire region.
Sure. Yeah.
Bodybuilders, whatever.
Gymnasts.
And so if you were looking at a cropped where there was no head and you just saw the torso,
right?
Could anybody actually tell?
No.
Probably not.
Well, you couldn't tell female or male. Well, I guess it all depends on how you're going to define female and male, which seems to be a problem on Tumblr as a platform.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and it really served as so. If we look back at the history of Tumblr, right, when it started up, it attracted the young crowd. So the 25 and under, the college age people, everybody who was really socially aware and woke and active and, really wanting to be progressive, right? And so literally people who had no other social media outlet that was as welcoming, right? Right. So we had LGBT, we had the kin folk, the people who are, a cat inside and want to express that on the outside.
Other kins.
Yes, other kins. So we have all of these different groups, not to mention just the abundance of porn and amateur created porn, first party created porn, where people were actually producing the porn themselves and putting it up themselves.
Of themselves. A lot of it of themselves.
Right. And, so
and a lot of like fetish stuff too.
A lot of fetish stuff.
Like a sort of fringe sexuality.
Yeah. Things you couldn't just go to Pornhub and download, all of it. You would go there for the specialty things that were a little harder to find.
Right.
And everybody's got their tastes,
But I think what's so the little bit. So it's not like I don't consider myself to be a Tumblr expert, but I think I have a good grasp on the mechanism behind it. So I guess I was introduced to it years ago. This is before I met my wife. Sort of started seeing this girl, and I was in an interesting time in my life, kind of mid-30s. Met this girl who's a very interesting individual at the time. She's super young, though. She's 19 years old, and I was like, at the time, I had just gotten out of a relationship with a woman who was 10 years older than me. I don't think I had dated even a 19-year-old woman when I was 19. You know what I mean? It's because I need to be able to talk with somebody. But so this was an individual that I was like, oh, you're kind of interesting. And she was a dancer, but she was very sort of cerebral about it. She was very into the seduction aspect. I kind of served as a bit of a mentor for her. But one of her things, when I first met her, I was like, oh, so what are you into? And she's like, oh, well, I blog. And so I had thought, mind you, this is, probably 6-7 years ago. I thought, okay, so like on WordPress and like, writing. And then she's like, no, here's my blog or whatever, and gave me the link to this Tumblr. And so I'm checking out her Tumblr, and I realized, I was like, okay, this is a whole other medium The idea of it's way more visceral. The idea of like a shorter, a coherent narrative, but like that was when I saw it, I was like, wow, there are some people who are some real artists, who are just creating sort of beautiful images and animations and sort of like memes, yes, but these really sort of aesthetic memes,
especially in the anime world. There are some incredible anime artists who have posted Tumblr for years. Just incredible art.
Yeah, it seems like a place for artists, and I think that the fact that you could have things that were adult in nature, that were sexually explicit, really broadened the canvas for artists. And because why do you want to keep that aspect of human existence out of the mix? You know, I mean, it's such a driver, human sexuality, especially for it literally is the creative human impulse.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Eastern philosophy, I mean, that's where like Tantra, sort of the sexual side of Tantra, that's what it's about for sure. Is like, it's the embodiment of the human creative impulse.
Yeah. And you go to, I mean, there's a parade, is it China that has the penis parade?
Yeah, it's Japan.
Japan.
Yeah.
Giant penises, you know, parading down the street. You know, it's not that bad. You know, it's part of the culture. And here, it's naughty. And it just drives me nuts.
Well, and I think that what had happened was, well, it seems to me, because the other aspect of this girl, right? She's woman now, but at the time, girl, who I was seeing was, you know, she fancied herself to be a feminist at the time that I met her. I think that, and probably had a lot of affinity towards SJW types. I would say that probably now, if you queried her political beliefs, hopefully in no part due to me, that she doesn't feel that way anymore. But it seems as though there were the two extremes, because the SJW side are very, in terms of sex and sexuality, are actually, even though there's sort of gender fluidity and all of this, the idea of overt sexuality is an absolute no-no. It's a no-no. Like, it's harassment.
Yeah.
You know, you're allowed to be whatever gender you want to be. That's fine. But to sexualize it in any way, well, that's abusive.
Right.
And so, but you had like communities of people who were like, I'm going to sexualize myself, and I want to be around a group of people who are sexualizing themselves, and we're going to have a community that's based on that.
Yep.
And then you had a group of people who were like, so sex positive as versus whatever, it's not sex negative, but whatever that is, conservative. And I feel like
the SJWs are very conservative.
They're conservatives. They're sexually conservative, which is weird, right?
It is weird.
It's like terms are turned on their heads, but they're more conservative than like Bible Belt conservatives.
Especially behind closed doors, I'm telling you.
Oh, especially behind. Well, see, that's the fundamental difference, is that it's not that the Bible Belt conservatives are scared of sex. Oh no, they're very much into it. It's just not socially acceptable to be displaying it overtly. Yeah. But like you say, behind closed doors, oh, anything goes, man. Crazy.
Yep.
Right there, that's the craziest group. But the SJWs, oh no, that's not actually the case. Behind closed doors, it still is. There's still this incredible amount of guilt and shame, and like, I don't know if this is appropriate, and all of this, right? So, and I mean, look, I experienced that being in the industry that I was in for as long as I was. I will tell you, those people from the Bible Belt were the craziest. They're the freak. Those are the freaks.
Yeah.
Those are the freaks.
I grew up in South Carolina.
That's what I'm saying.
I know of which you speak.
That's what I'm saying. And I feel like this might actually be an important moment, because I feel that, Tumblr had gotten I think those two groups had been mixed in together. People would use sort of Tumblr as a pejorative to say it's like a cesspool. It's like both you have like the Marxists in there and the SJWs, and at the same time you have like these sex freaks who are in there,
and Nazis and white supremacists, and literally everything that you can't find in mainstream media. It's like there really wasn't a lot of mainstream media. It was a whole lot of the alternative stuff, things you can't really find just anywhere. And it was, a lot of it was junk, but some of it was really insightful. And some of the people that were presenting it were very talented. And, they were artists, they were photographers, they were producing their own content, putting it up there. Sex workers, nude models, cam girls, they would get on there, and cam guys, they would get on, produce their own content, and they were making a living.
Well, that's what I saw with this particular girl, because she was taking pictures of herself, obviously, and I mean, she was a dancer, she was a stripper, you know what I mean, and so she would take pictures of herself and she would post those, and she would, sort of like reblog other girls who were doing the same thing, and cam girls and whatever, and she's bisexual, she's into the female form, into the male form, she's all these things, and it was very interesting, right? So it's like, especially to see an individual's aesthetic when they're actually like really trying at it, and she did. I don't know if she still does or not, but she really did, and so it was interesting. But I think that what this perhaps shows is that it shows one side, that actually what Tumblr was a battle, and that it was a battle for the soul of the alternative. What is going to be acceptable on the how far do the fringes extend? Let's put it like that. What are the boundaries of the fringes? The Overton window.
Yeah.
It's a battle for the Overton window.
And while they are busy with their porn detecting bots who are detecting all kinds of crazy stuff that has nothing to do with porn, like literally some of the things that are being flagged, there have been articles written, Wired Magazine had one just a couple of days ago, with samples of images that were flagged as pornographic that had absolutely no porn content whatsoever.
It's just algorithms, right?
It's totally an algorithm. There was a black cat lying on a tan couch, not a human in sight. The cat was fully...
It's the curve.
Yeah, the cat was fully furred. There was, I have no idea what it picked up on. Was it the color of the couch? Was it the, did it mistake it for skin tone? Was it like the curves, like you said?
Curve,
I mean,
probably.
What is it that this algorithm is picking up on and thinking that this poor cat is making porn when, and see, that's part of this problem is what is porn. And that has never been, I don't think it can be defined. Tumblr has come out and said, oh, well, if it's art, then it's okay.
But who determines what is art and what's not art?
Exactly.
Right. Well, that was the People versus Larry Flint sort of. That was that case, right? The obscenity, and
who's the other guy? Mapplethorpe, was that? Or no? Who was the guy that did the like the pooping on Jesus? What was that?
Oh yes. I don't remember. You're gonna have to look that. You're gonna have to look that up.
The same exact thing.
I mean, this is when you get into the subjective. When you start moving in that direction, you're in a lot of trouble. And in thinking about this topic, it made me think of 1984, and starting probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I just every day was, did you get it?
Robert Mapplethorpe.
Mapplethorpe.
Yep.
I started posting every day. I would wake up and I would just do a tweet that was my first tweet of the day that would be #read1984. And it specifically read 1984 because there are some important aspects, I think maybe the most important aspects of the book, that the movie, although visually stunning, does not capture at all. And one of those is the I guess it's what is it, the young women's anti-sex league. I guess that's the female character in the book that Winston sort of falls in love with and that gets him set up, and basically she's the reason why he winds up I won't give the plot away for people who haven't read it. You just have to go and read it. But why he ends up in trouble, in their society, sex is a bad thing. And the women, they wear these like purple sashes, which I find real interesting for like the purple hair of the SJWs. I'm like, oh, that's so 1984. But they wear these purple sashes so that they can be identified as being part of the young women's anti-sex league. And so the thing is that you're supposed to not have sex because it's bad for the party or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's a political thing to be that. And so,
didn't Hitler do something like that, where you could only have sex to preserve the Aryan race, and that those who were impure could not have sex?
I mean, I think that's something that all fascist regimes. Well, look, control over your sexuality and guilt about your sexuality is one of the keys to controlling people. It's something that every totalitarian regime is going to do. They're going to control food. They're going to control sex, for sure.
Whether church or government.
Church, government, doesn't matter. I mean, it could be family. You know what I mean? Anybody who's trying to control you, those are your natural urges. And they're going to want to control those things. They're going to want to make you feel guilty about them, because then you're like turning to authority for all of this. So it really made me start to think that, part of Orwell's dystopia, a very important, it's actually really kind of the most important part of 1984 in terms of the narrative of Winston, is his relationship with this woman, and is the fact that just to have a sexual relationship is completely taboo. But that it's not against the law, because what we learn in 1984 in the opening pages is nothing is against the law, but they know that doing these particular things will result in their death. But nothing's against the law. And I feel that we're entering what should scare people is that we're entering that time.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what the Me Too movement represented. Because I think a lot of the people who were called out, and I mean, obviously you had like the Harvey Weinstein was doing some literal illegal shit. Some horrible,
regardless of legality, it was just
horrible shit, right? So and there were some other individuals who were Bill Cosby, horrible shit, right? But then you had some other people where it was like very sort of, well, you couldn't really prosecute them criminally for this, and you might not even really be able to bring a civil case against them, but you sure as fuck could ruin them forever.
Yeah.
I mean, the Charlie Rose, Garrison Keillor, like all these people who were like these people who you're like, really, Garrison Lake Wobegon, like the NPR dude? Yep, gone. Like not even, gone. And completely.
It doesn't have to be current. Think about Kevin Hart.
Years.
Think about the dude that just won the Heisman, right?
Absolutely.
It's like they had to go back to when he was a teenager.
Oh yeah, 15 years old.
Yeah, 15 years old, and he said something homophobic. Okay, like, yes, there are perfect snowflakes in the world who have never said a homophobic thing in their life, but there are also a vast majority of people who have said things to impress their friends or because they thought they were being funny. And yeah, in hindsight, probably not all that funny. If I actually had to relive everything I said as a teenager, it would be mortifying.
If you expect a 15-year-old, I would say if you're not saying offensive things at the age of 15, something's probably wrong with you.
Yeah, because you're not rebelling. That's the rebellion age.
And because you have to test those boundaries. You have to, I think in some ways, in order to know that it's crass. It's funny because I've had this discussion with so many people who I really, really respect. And it resonates with me because it's true for me as well, that like the things that I sort of think are bullying others, being, like I say, being disrespectful towards others, and belittling them for things that they can't control. All of those sorts of things that now, me as a 40-year-old man, that I find like obnoxious and abhorrent and the types of things that I would never do. Those are all things that I did as a very young man, as a teenager.
Yeah. I think most people do.
And I think had I not done them, I probably would not see them as being so abhorrent, right?
Yeah, there wouldn't have been a lesson to learn.
Exactly. And so it's looking back and knowing that, like, wow. It's also very humbling.
Yeah.
You know, to say, while I see that there's a problem there, if I see somebody who is a young person doing it, I'm not going to, and that's why I thought this thing with this Heisman Trophy guy was so inappropriate, the way that it was handled, because one, he's not 15 anymore. If I encountered a 15-year-old, if I encountered him doing it now, my reaction would be significantly different than if I encountered a 15-year-old. Because if I, as an adult, encounter a child who's behaving in that way, my reaction towards them is not what my reaction is towards an adult.
No.
Towards an adult, I'm like, well, you're a fucking asshole. You've got a problem, right? Go away from me.
Yeah.
If it's a 15-year-old, I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's have a little conversation about why that's not. I've been where you are. I'm going to let you know that's not going to get you far. Behaving as you are. It's a learning. It's a teaching moment. It's an opportunity for them to learn something, and for me to have some compassion because I did it myself.
Exactly. And sometimes those people don't learn at 15. Sometimes they learn at 20 or 25.
Or 30 or 40 or whatever the hell it is.
You know, and then you go back and like, what was Eddie Murphy Raw? Was that there in Delirious? Was that like 1990?
Oh, no, that was 80s.
80s?
Yeah.
Back in the 80s?
Yeah.
Go back and watch one of those sometime because...
Oh, he would never get away with that now.
Never.
No,
and he had to be in his 30s at the time, right?
Oh, so, yeah. For sure.
So, I mean, here's a 30-some-year-old comedian who is just killing it in front of this audience. The entire audience is pissing themselves laughing. And he is saying some really, what we would consider today, criminal things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, wow. Like, you know, Kevin Hart gets called out, but not, you know, Eddie Murphy. I mean,
Kevin Hart is so tame.
So tame.
He's one of the tamest comedians out there.
I mean, he's no Wayne Brady, but you know.
Well, no. He's no Wayne Brady, but I think, you know, if you were to take out it's like this, take out the curse words.
Yeah.
And I really don't see anything super offensive. I mean, of course, you can find... He's a professional comedian.
Yeah.
So that means he's trying out jokes all the time.
Yep.
He's throwing things out. Because you figure you have to.
Absolutely.
There's not going to be any other way of going about something. You can't. The way that you sort of workshop something is you got to throw it out there and see what happens, and then
you have to do it in public.
You have to do it in public.
Totally different than, like, if you're a sports player, you practice not in public. You practice in private with the rest of the team. Right. If you're a musician, you practice in private. You might have the band get together.
Maybe. I mean, you're still going to have to play some things in front of people.
You do, but you don't do it the first time in front of people.
Exactly.
You practice it until you think it sounds good, and then you take it out there. With a comedian, they have no way of knowing if what they're going to say is going to be funny.
It's like being a pickup artist.
It is. It is exactly like that because you don't know if it's going to work. And the weirdest things might work that you would have never expected.
Oh, and they do.
Yeah.
And that's because you're having this interplay. But I also think that that's also true of public intellectuals.
Oh yeah,
I think you have to think out. Jordan Peterson talks about this, and I think that he's for. I think I've gotten back good with my opinion of Jordan Peterson because I see him continuing to grow, which I like.
Fall off the bus for a while.
I think that so there was this little period. It was the enforced monogamy thing that then he doubled down and was trying to He was like, yeah, enforced monogamy stops like these incels from shooting up places and stuff. And it was such a weird comment that he made. and then he doubled down on it, and then like the guys around him tripled down on it, and I was like, the enforced monogamy, he doubled down on it, and he was like, the fact that polygamy is illegal is enforced monogamy, and I was like, oh, the state. Oh, okay. Well, wow, that's crazy. I don't think I really want to do that. But I've seen that like he even moved past that. But what he does, and he said it, is that like it's about thinking in public, and it's kind of what we're doing here.
Totally.
It's important to think in public. Some things you have to think in public, and especially being involved in the particular communities that I'm involved in. These are like transparent communities.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so you need to know, because they're voluntary communities, you need to know what the people around you are thinking, and you can't really trust people who aren't willing to think in public.
Right, because why would you? And that's the thing. It's what government does. Yeah, I got you.
Thank you. Continue, please.
So government has a lot of closed-door meetings.
Yes.
And they do a lot of their thinking in private, and a lot of that stuff never sees the light of day.
Well, there's a reason they're thinking in private, because they're thinking some terrible shit. And I think that's what it is that it's like anybody who is who is workshopping something so hard for the purpose of not offending me is probably trying to manipulate me.
Totally.
That's what I would rather that you were honest and you offended me than that you went out of your way to be sure not to offend me so that you could manipulate me.
Right. In order to do that, you have to be comfortable making mistakes.
Right.
And everybody makes mistakes. And when you're in a community like we're in, and there is a great deal of value and reputation points based on how you conduct yourself with the other members of the community.
Right.
Are you honest? Are you forthright? Do you hold up to your word? I mean, there are things that if you are not, acting in good faith, if you're not being a good person, word spreads quickly.
Absolutely.
But the opposite is also true. Like if you are a good person, word spreads quickly, right? And knowing that your reputation is not up to you to determine is one of those mental shifts that is really difficult for a lot of people to make. People think that they are in control of their reputation. This is what really got to Scott when he was like,
are you talking about Scott Adams today?
Scott Adams.
Yes.
He was so freaked out that some person on the internet had photoshopped Nazi clothes onto him, and that it showed up in a Google search, that he actually got on Periscope and like whined about it for
so for the people who are not quite following that, today I got into a little thing with Scott, a very little thing with Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, who responded that he was I don't know that I called him a little bitch. I was creating a scenario, but he called me a little bitch and said that he was blocking me, basically because he has, well, for people who don't know, Scott Adams has been touting the brilliance of Donald Trump for basically the past 2 years, since before the 2016 election. Talking about, basically he's one of the people who has said that Donald Trump is playing 4D chess, that he's a great persuader, and through that he has gained way more notoriety than he had from just creating the Dilbert comics. He's written,
which was hilarious. I have loved Dilbert for many years.
Look, Scott Adams is he's a brilliant guy. He's a fantastic artist. He's a great writer, and he's right about a lot of the things that he has said regarding Donald Trump. He's absolutely right. I would say, besides the fact that he's a statist, I agree with a whole lot of what he says. I think he's a super smart guy, but he has entered into a fight on the side into a partisan political fight, something that I am against in the first place. He has gotten notoriety off of it. He's making profit off of it because I
Yep.
think he's now selling his second book
Wow.
that is about how great Donald Trump is. It's called this latest one is called Win Bigly, and it'll
No.
and it's
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it's all about I think the subtitle is something like how to succeed in a world where facts don't matter anymore, or something like that. How to persuade others in a world where facts don't matter, something like that.
Wow.
Which is a very interesting topic. But he got on Periscope today and complained in a very lame and snowflakey way. And this is a guy who's got to be in his 50s, right? Like he's a grown man. So he gets on, he's snowflaking out about the fact that if you search his name on Google, and you go into Google Images, that like there's 2 images within the top 10 that are like photoshopped images of him with a Nazi armband on. And so I did a tweet and I was like, I said, what does this, and I guess this is the second part of our second topic, but I said, is this what it's come to with men? Yeah. That an individual voluntarily decides to pick a side in a fight that there's no mystery about the fact that it's important to a lot of people, and that there are sides and who the sides are, and he decides to be a partisan on one side, and in so doing gains notoriety, gains money, and then when the opponent connects with a smack to the face, proceeds to whine like a little bitch. And I feel like that was an accurate description of what it was that I was seeing. And so then my final comment was like, man up, you should be ashamed. And like he immediately responded, I'm blocking you because you're a little bitch who doesn't understand things. That's literally what he said. And
honestly, he has a gigantic platform. How badly could he have skewered Google in his comics for the next 5 years?
That's what I'm. This is what I'm saying, that his so his fans decided that they were going to jump in and either defend him or whatever. And I there were a couple that I found it worthy to like, okay, I'll continue this thread on for posterity's sake, just to be sure that people understand. No.
I'm going to continue this on because hilarity is about to ensue.
Right. So, I mean, what I was trying to communicate was that, look, this is not a comment. This is a comment about his reaction was not that of a warrior.
No.
And he wants to benefit from going to war. He wants to profit from going to war, but he doesn't want to be a warrior.
No consequences.
Yeah. Right. There can be it has to be only upside.
Yep.
And that to me is indicative. Well, isn't that the complaint? Isn't that the snowflake complaint?
Yeah. Nothing should have consequences ever, in any possible way. And if there are any consequences, then big bully government needs to step in and kill those people who are making me have consequences.
Well, it's interesting because his reaction. See, I don't follow him. I mean, I've seen a few things. He's so repetitive with what he says that it doesn't really appeal to me. I know it appeals to like the Trumpians or whatever. That's fine. You can have like a very narrow focus, and I think that's fantastic. If he's making a living doing that, great. Now, mind you, as I told you before the show, I kind of did feel a little tinge of not guilt, maybe sadness, because I did find out that his son recently, I don't know whether it was from an overdose or suicide. I don't remember the exact story, and I don't want to get it wrong. But his son died or was recently found dead, like in October, end of October. So I know that this dude's emotions are probably pretty raw right now. So I kind of, I don't feel bad about saying what I said because I think it was accurate, but I understand if he's maybe off his game right now.
Sure, right? And I don't think you were attacking him
I wasn't.
begin with.
I wasn't. It wasn't really about him in particular.
You were making a more general point about the state of men, the state of masculinity, the state of the archetypal man in today's world.
And I think some of it was also, it's interesting how he starts out that Periscope. And if people just go to my Twitter, it's on there for today. But it's interesting how he starts that Periscope as well, because he says, he's sort of sitting there and he's like, okay, I like to wait until about 1,000 people are watching, just so that I know that you're paying it. So he starts out with bravado, with a very alpha male attitude, right?
See, I took it as completely insecure. When I read it, because so when
Go ahead.
I watched like the first 2-3 minutes,
Yeah.
And then I fast forwarded a couple of minutes so I can actually see what you were saying.
Yeah.
But when he was talking about, I like to let people join, whatever, to me, that was entirely ego driven, because he wanted to make sure that he was going to be delivering this message at the right time. Like, dude, if you're going to deliver a message, deliver a freaking message.
Right.
Like, you don't have to wait until your fan club shows up. Because to me, that is all about feeding his ego. And, like, I love that we get to do this, and I love that we have listeners and we have people that interact with us.
Sure.
And it's phenomenal. If we have 1,000 views, if we have 5,000 views, if we had 1 million views at some point,
Right.
I don't know that it would change my approach to the whole thing.
No, me either.
I might have a better haircut, but it's like, you can't get so sucked into the whole ego trip of who you think you are and who you're trying to present. And this is, going back to the reputation thing that I was saying earlier, is that he is trying to control his reputation.
Right.
Like, he's got a grip on that reputation, and oh my God, somebody photoshopped a Nazi uniform on me. I can't survive this.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, nobody fucking believes that you were in a Nazi uniform.
Well, it's clearly a photoshopped.
Yeah.
It's
fake.
It's a troll. It's a troll. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me because the number of negative images of Donald Trump.
Oh my God. Devil horn sticking out of his head. I mean, well, Jesus.
Here's what's interesting. If you go to Scott Adams' Twitter profile, his banner, he's advertising his book, where he's drawn Trump, and but he's drawn the dog in Dilbert. Mm-hmm. He's basically made, I think that's pretty much what it is, that as with the Trump hair.
Nice.
So he's caricatured Trump on the cover of his book.
Yeah.
But then he's upset. For a political cartoonist to be upset about being caricatured seems
silly.
That's why I even, again, like, this is not somebody that I particularly follow, but that was why the whole thing about it was just this contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why I wanted to call it out, because I thought that it was a symptom of something much bigger, to where, look, it could have just as easily been me commenting on Kanye West and what he's done in the past couple of days with this whole thing with Drake and all of this. And it's like, these are, this is really it was really a genuine question that I was asking, like, where are men?
Yeah.
Because I feel kind of left out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been cultivating something for my whole life, because I have felt that, like, there is the positive masculine.
Yeah.
And just like there's a positive feminine, and I'm only attracted to those. So, like, the friends that I keep, my male friends, positive masculine. My good female friends, positive feminine. Like, I'm not into, but I feel like that's, whether you want to say a dying breed, whatever it is, I feel like people don't even know how to recognize it, because and that was happening in the thread as well, on that particular thread, because I was like, where you brought up an individual who said, oh, well, you're like a parody of machismo. And it was so weird interacting with this individual because I was like, I don't even think you know how to identify the positive masculine.
No, and he also doesn't understand the meaning of the word parody. So I actually sent him a clip of Nick Hawk, and now he understands what a parody of machismo is.
That's a parody of. Although what I will say is he's over the top. I would say he's parody via hyperbole.
Hyperbole, yes.
Right? So but he does legitimately once you get around sort of the insecurities that he has, all of those guys. And I think maybe that's just because I spent a lot of time around guys who really cultivated and were paid to cultivate the sort of sacred masculine, if you will, the sort of wise king vibe, right? That sort of protector, and still to have, and we talked about this before the show, still, if you need to play up play up the machismo. Yeah. Why not? But for fun.
Yeah. Or because you need to, so there's a difference between dominance and aggression. And I try to explain this to people. It's like when you raise dogs, you need to be dominant. You do not ever need to be aggressive, because aggressive leads to more aggression.
Right. It escalates.
Dominance leads to a comfortable hierarchy where everybody knows where they are in the hierarchy and everybody's happy.
Right.
And that comes from the leader. So the leader of the pack has this calming, soothing, dominant vibe. So there are no challenges. There are no, upstarts. And if there is, then you put on the show. Right. But if there isn't, because there shouldn't be, then everything just proceeds along and everything runs super smooth. And that's why, to me, when we're talking about masculinity in the positive sense, not not the toxic masculinity, not any of that, but positive masculinity has everything to do with that calm, soothing, dominant nature, and not aggressive, not showy, not worried about your ego, none of that stuff.
Well, and I think that this is super. It's funny that you say that. It's not funny that you say that. It's appropriate that you say that. It resonates for me, and it kicks off something that. I've been doing these ayahuasca ceremonies for quite a while, trying to sort of. I don't want to put out too much publicly, but
I would very much like to partake in one of those at some point in the distant future, perhaps 20, 30 years from now.
Okay.
Whenever that might be scheduled.
Right. So, yes. And let's just say that I'm not done with that exploration, and that I am trying to introduce people who are close to me to that as well. But the organizer of many of the ceremonies that I have participated in, one of the things that she said to me relatively early on, maybe like the second or third ceremony that I sat with that group, was that she said that she really enjoyed. Now, what's interesting is that ayahuasca is a very feminine spirit, but traditionally the shamans are male. But in this case, as it's sort of being brought to the West, it really is women who are pushing this thing forward. You still have a lot of male shaman, but there now are more females, and really the organizers seem to be women who are bringing this thing forward, which makes sense because it's a female spirit. Yep. We have this strong separation of genders in sort of Western society, so you would expect that this is going to flow through women, sort of this motherly vibe. But it was very interesting. And so you do actually get a lot of kind of the feminist types, which is interesting, right? So involved in these communities. And it was interesting because she said to me very early on, she was like, I love having you in ceremony because, I'm pretty overall pretty quiet. I do interact with people, but especially beforehand, I'm relatively quiet. I'm usually in my own head about like, what am I going to be doing and working on? But she said exactly what you said. She's like, because there is this sort of calming energy. And she's also very good about when she knows everybody who's going to be involved, about where I started noticing where she would set people. It's usually in kind of a circular type setting, and where she would set people and who those individuals would be, that it would be like these guys who were sort of that you could tell, okay, this guy can handle his business, but he's clearly an honest, polite, caring type of individual, but I wouldn't fuck with him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And those would be the people who were like in the sort of corners, like setting this thing off. And
they're in the exit aisle.
Exactly. And it creates weirdly, like automatically, it just creates a calming vibe. And you figure that must go back to ancient times where you would have like the fire, and the tribe, and you're in the middle of the wilderness, and that there are fucking predators out there and other tribesmen.
Yep.
And you've got the fire, and you probably got the children, and you probably got the women watching the children, and then on the outskirts with their backs, in the shadows, that's where the men are.
Yeah.
Maybe enjoying, but never fully enjoying.
No,
always with an eye on what's going on out here. And I feel like when we've reached a society that is so safe now,
ridiculously safe,
that the need that we've become, or the need to be that type of individual, I think some people think it's redundant. But the fact of the matter is, it's not redundant at all.
Not at all. Not at all. And if you look at it from even a medical science standpoint, back in the 1800s, there was a doctor who did a study of the grip strength of infants. These are newborn infants, a day old, sometimes, some cases hours old.
Right.
And back in the 1800s, they were able to hang suspended from a bar for, 45 seconds, a minute, a minute and a half, Now, keep in mind, baby monkeys of the same age can hang for half an hour.
Their mother, no problem.
Yeah, one arm for an hour, no problem.
Yeah.
Humans, a minute and a half or so for a newborn
That's amazing.
infant.
That's amazing.
Right? Well, it's amazing to us because our infants can't do that.
Right.
Our teenagers can't do that.
Right.
Our 30-year-old men can't do that.
Right.
The top prospect, he was a top number one choice, couldn't do one pull-up. I can't remember his name. Little white kid going for some, pro sport. He was a top number one pick, and he could not do a single pull-up.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here going, this is, and the study actually concluded that there was a direct relationship between grip strength and longevity. So those with higher lifetime grip strength tended to live much, much longer. Not just
particularly in the 1800s, that would make sense.
No, but even today, those today who have, and this is something that they are starting to test a lot more often because they had doctors noticing it, that when they have their, medical gauge where you just grab onto it and grip it, the people with the higher grip strength not only recovered from injuries, not just hand and arm injuries, but anything on their body. They recovered faster. They were generally healthier, even if they were overweight or, in some kind of category that might, preclude them to illness. They were generally much more healthy than the weaker gripped population, whatever. Anyway, so it goes back to physical strength, and it goes back to testosterone levels in men,
sure, of course,
which have been dropping steadily for the last 100 years.
Right.
The testosterone levels that we have today, when doctors are saying, if you're down around 300, you probably want to get checked and, maybe do some kind of supplementation. A 300 level testosterone was something for like a 6-year-old boy 150 years ago. You had men who were running around with readings of 2,000, no problem.
Right.
And they weren't bodybuilders. They were just farmers.
They just worked every day.
They just worked every day, and it was like, they had grip strength. They had testosterone. They were much more robust than the people that we're cranking out today. And the worrisome situation is that this decline in general health, in physical strength, is occurring at an incredibly rapid rate. It is outpacing like any threat that we might have from global warming. This is so much faster and more aggressive. Just in the last 10 years or so, we have just dropped off the cliff.
Well, now that you mentioned it, on that same thread of this particular individual who's saying, you're a parody of machismo, who in throwing insults where I was like, I don't even understand, are these supposed to be insults, said something like, maybe you should lay off the testosterone.
Yeah, he said he accused you of taking testosterone pills. One, you don't take it with a pill.
No.
And two, I mean, literally, if he had met your sexiness, he would not.
Why, thank you.
He would not be saying that. I mean, look, you're like 6 foot, 6'1", you're ripped, muscular, great looking dude.
Why, thank you. This is amazing.
I know.
Continue, sir.
Yeah. Full beard. I mean, you get no trouble growing the beard.
Thanks to you with the great beard oil, by the way.
I
should probably market and sell your beard solution.
That is a fantastic idea. I think I will start doing that because I scienced the crap out of that, and it seems to work.
Now I got to take a commission off it. No, well, what's interesting about it is that is a complete paradigm shift for me, because I mean, we were even talking about this. Just, it's funny because we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, where I was like, I purposely have made a decision now entering into my 40s, which would be the time, if I wanted to go and, like, I haven't had my hormone levels checked in probably 6 or 7 years.
Now, I'm going to confirm for our viewers who may not believe you're in your 40s.
I am.
That he is legitimately in his 40s.
Yes, I am.
Even though he looks like he just turned 30. So there you go.
So, but I have said I am staying away from doing that. I know what it is like to be, while I've never done testosterone injections or anything like that, I've never done hormone replacement. I've done like very regimented supplementation that was I've done like estrogen blockers before, which I'll never do again. That was literal nightmares. But like I've done supplementation such that I could like really raise my testosterone levels to like very high levels, and I'm purposely not doing that. Mm-hmm. It's there's no. I think there's no reason to. I think that you can. That there's a graceful aspect to it, and I've been around enough guys who have tried to stay young, and you start chasing that.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to get into a mind state where I'm chasing that. And so it's this weird. It almost says more about the other person.
Yeah, totally.
Right? To where, but that's what I'm so curious about. I'm always, I never take these things seriously. I have a very thick skin after being on reality TV for so many years. But I engage with these individuals because I'm fascinated by like, well, what's going on with you though? Like,
mm-hmm. Well, it's funny it is funny that you say that, because a friend of mine, good friend of mine, she is fantastic, and she has been engaging incels in online conversations, trying to get into their heads.
I'm fascinated with those dudes, by the way.
I am too, and I kept reading her posts, and I'm just like, what is she doing? Why?
Yeah.
Because to me, I would not want to have a conversation with them. I would not want to, because they literally believe the opposite of everything that I do.
Right.
And I'm just like, dude, seriously, like, come live with me for 6 months. I swear to God, by the end of
I'll
it,
get you laid.
You will be in better shape. You'll be getting laid. You'll be happier all the way around, But, so she's like engaging, and she's very attractive lady. And she is engaging with these people. And I'm just like, why would you do? So I message her. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like I don't get it. Fill me in. What's the deal? Like, is there a joke? And she said, no, like, I really, in my own way, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to engage them. I'm trying to talk to them. I'm trying to show them that women aren't scary. And I'm just trying to, like, fix somebody if I can. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's way more work than I'm willing to put into that.
Right.
See that, and incels, another thing from Tumblr, I mean, I don't know if
is there an incel community on Tumblr?
Oh, there would have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally everything that is, non-mainstream is out there. It's like you have Bears and Cubs, club, and
I don't know about all that.
That's a gay thing. So
okay.
yeah.
The incel thing is interesting to me, especially coming from the pickup artist community in sort of the early 2000s, because you didn't have the certainly the social networks weren't there. You had bulletin boards and whatnot. And I feel like the same guys who are incels now, there was a large group of them who, well, because what else would they be attracted to except the pickup artist community at that time, right? Because I think there was a promise, and the promise wasn't a false promise. If you found the right group of guys, that was the key. Like, you had to navigate through a lot of sort of scammers and con artists. It's a lot like crypto in that way. You had to navigate through a lot of scammers and con artists.
Kind of like life that way.
Yeah, like life. And you had to be willing to, because, as you walk down the path, at every step of the way, there's somebody offering you a shortcut.
Right.
And I used to, on these message boards, the community of guys that I was a part of, it was called Santa Monica Lounge. And it was actually like a private message board. You had to be approved or someone had to bring you in. Super great guys. But there was no con in it. The whole thing about it was like, look, you can really become really great with women. But what you're going to learn as you move through this is that what you're really all about is you're becoming great for maybe a couple women at first, but you're really going to end up finding somebody in this process that you really, really like. And what you're really trying to become good at is relationships.
Yeah.
Long-term relationships. That's what you're really after here. And what's going to work. And that's who you're becoming a good man for. And if you could make it past all of the shortcuts, all of the guys trying to feed you some sort of idea of a fantasy that wasn't really a fantasy. The idea you can have any woman, you could just walk into a bar and you could just bang her in the bathroom, and it's like, do I want to do that? Do I want to do that more than one time in my life? I really don't.
Yeah. I
really don't. And to be like, do that every night. You do that every night, dude. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting that is no longer there. The pickup artist community could not exist now. It would be completely like SJWs would just rip. It's gone. It's basically gone.
Is it gone or has it gone underground?
If it's gone underground, it's gone way underground.
Wow.
Way.
Because what I recall about that whole scene, and I never took classes or joined a bulletin board or anything like that, but what I noticed was a lot of the guys were not attractive. They looked like
for sure.
They looked like Screech from
for sure.
And Screech, I think, did go on to make porn, so it's kind of ironic. But they were, like pimply faced, curly hair, skinny. You know, it's like they're not the type that you would think would be successsul at picking up women. But buy this book and follow these methods and do these things, and you can pick up women. And so I think the lesson is that it has a lot less to do with what you look like and a lot more to do with who you are and how you behave and the confidence that you bring, because people are attracted to confidence. People are attracted to people who have that calm dominance, people who have
that's what positive masculinity is.
It is, absolutely.
It is confidence. And I think that's ultimately why, because you ask any woman what's the most attractive thing in a man, and she's going to say confidence. And it's like, okay, but what the fuck does that mean? What does confidence mean? I mean, I think I've figured it out. It's a little bit of je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
But I think what it really comes down to is,
for our listeners, that is French for I know not what.
I know not what. What it really is it's an embodiment of. It's kind of like how you can be around a tiger after it's eaten.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be around a hungry tiger. And human beings are the most badass predators on the planet. We kill tigers and mount them and put their heads up above our mantle place.
You're talking like taxidermy. Sorry.
Right.
You lost me with the mounting. We kill them and then we mount them.
Now you're back to the bears and cubs thing.
I know. Now we're on Tumblr.
No, I'm talking about actual animals. That might be on Tumblr too. I don't.
It is.
Until the 17th. Until the 17th. It's on Tumblr.
It'll still be there because their algorithms are horrible.
Their algorithms suck, especially when it comes to tigers. No, it is understandable that. Because it is actually true. Like, if you're around a hungry tiger, that is a psychopathic male whose sex drive is who's maybe even gone beyond that, because we're talking about an incel now, right? Who's moved from horniness to resentment.
Yeah.
Right? Who's now not out to bang you, who's out to hurt you. Right? That's when you've reached that point. Okay, yes, you don't want to be around that individual. But what is confidence? I think confidence is a fed tiger. Right? That's the what's so weird about it is who a woman is going to be attracted to. And this is why they say, if you want the girl, ignore her. Ignore her. Because that means you're a fed tiger.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're safe. Like, sure. It's a weird paradox. And so that's really what confidence is. Confidence is, he's not trying to do any little magic tricks to impress me. He's not trying to do any of this. He's just like living his life, being him, enjoying himself. And that was like myself and my wingman. So my wingman but like, it's kind of like my primary wingman who like I had the most fun with, which is probably why I was the most successful going out with this dude. Tall, good looking, redheaded, New Zealander.
Wow.
Right? So he had the accent.
Great accent.
He was doing the thing. But he had the insecurity about the red hair. Like, redheaded guys don't get it. Redheaded women win. Redhead guys, tough time.
It's the lack of soul. That's the problem.
Gingers have no soul. But what was interesting was that what we noticed because we would have such a great time going out together. Right? That it would almost be like we would just be locked in. It was those moments when we were locked in conversation in some crowded bar, but we were laughing and telling jokes to each other and drinking, cheersing, just having fun with ourselves.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we would look up and there would just be women ringing us, just all around. And it's like, wow, we didn't have to do any. And it literally could like just grab them and be like, oh, hey, you look cool. Mm-hmm. Because we were the party.
Right.
Oh, those guys are having fun. They don't care about us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what confidence is. And it's a lack of insecurity. It's like, no, I'm handled.
And it's also a complete lack of manipulation.
Oh, yeah, because I don't care about you.
Right. So there's no prize to be won.
No.
We're not trying to convince you to do anything. So, we're just hanging out, having a good time, doing our thing. Who else does that? Stars,
Yeah.
People who have their own entourage,
Yeah.
people who have their, who have their own thing. Those are the people that do that. And anyone that comes up on that is like, wow, I want to be part of that. I'm not feeling
it looks fun. Yeah. You're not involved.
Yeah. I'm not being tricked into being involved. It's just, it looks like fun. So.
And it's interesting. It goes back to,
yes.
Thank you. Are we starting a new bottle?
Oh yeah.
So
right on time.
So in the context of the Scott Adams comment,
mm-hmm.
I mean, like I say, I really could care less about Scott Adams. It was like it could have been anybody who thank you, who sort of fit the bill of, oh wow, you've gotten notoriety and made a profit off of being involved in this fight, and now you want to complain about taking a shot in the fight. That's that was more what the comment was about, that, well, this is part of being in a man's world. Like, that you're supposed to, I could understand if you're like, okay, yeah, they hit me with that shot. Okay, now the gloves come off. Now I'm going to skewer them. Look at this great comic that I made about this.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Spoogle. And everything evil is going to come from Spoogle from now on. I mean, it could have gone for years.
Years.
Yeah.
Years.
It could have demolished them.
And just demolished them and embarrassed them. And,
yeah.
and I feel like that's what it is to... I've always felt that's what it is to be a man. It's not that you're out looking for a fight.
No, but you're not afraid of it.
No. And also, when it comes, that you appreciate it, that you participate in it, that in some ways you revel in it.
Yeah.
And hopefully you grow to respect your opponent over time. Like you want to, as a matter of self-respect, by the way, this wine's good. As a matter of self-respect, like, okay, I took a shot. Okay, good. Let me give you back a shot. Let me make you're going to respect me. I may lose this fight, but you're going to respect the hell out of me, because I'm going to give back as good as I get. It's not going to be like, oh, you punched me. And now, because what really not what upset me, but what was the sort of catalyst for me saying you're whining like a bitch, which has been the catalyst also for me saying this to Calvin Ayre, is the threat of a lawsuit.
If you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to say it. The very next thing out of my mouth was going to be, I'm surprised he didn't just sue them. I mean, come on.
Right, exactly. Well, no, that's what he threatened.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll give them 48 hours. If it's not down in 48 hours, I'm going to go and I'm going to sue. And it's like, dude.
Wow.
Bro. Because that is, to me, that's the mark of you're not a man. Because you're getting some other man to handle your business for you.
Right. And that is exactly. So when people talk about bullying, I say people love bullies. Yep. Like, it is not about people, oh, I hate bullies, whatever.
Nope.
People love bullies.
Yep.
It's the bullies on their side,
right,
that they really love.
That's right.
And as long, if you're a Trump supporter and you're like, oh, our boys over there fighting for our freedoms, bullying, I mean, come on, they're over there invading other countries. Give me a good reason, right? Yeah. There hasn't been a fight for our actual freedom since World War II. I mean, give me a break.
And arguably not even then. Arguably.
I don't know.
At least in the European theater, arguably.
Japan bombed us. So
Japan. In the Pacific theater, no doubt. In the European theater, up for argument.
And we let it go for a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, we did. We let them try to settle their own beef for a long time. And then Japan was like, oh, we bombed them and they never mess with us again. And that didn't work out too well for them.
Well, but that was the most, for America, that was a brutal, the Pacific theater was no joke.
Yeah.
It was no joke. It was a very different kind of war. It didn't get the same sort of photographs, and it didn't have the same, and that was the main thing, was that, you didn't see the photographs of the atrocities that were done in Asia. The rape of Nanking, what happened in the Philippines. I mean, the Japanese were brutal.
Yeah.
They were brutal, man. And you didn't get to see all the photos of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You didn't get to see all of that. Like, a lot of that's been erased from history.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's but still, you're right. We haven't fought a war to protect ourselves in a very, very long time.
No, not directly protecting our land, our interests, our whatever. No. So then when there is a perceived slight, and that's what we're getting into, that is the age that we're in now, is of the perceived slight.
Right.
So, God, there's a great comedy routine on this, and I wish I could remember who did it, but it essentially is, if someone disrespects you, if someone looks at you the wrong way, if somebody takes your parking spot, then people go ballistic, and they have every right to just slam into their car, whatever. It's an overreaction to minimal stimulus. Mm-hmm. And if you really look at the entirety of life and what life is all about, it's a very minor thing. So, for example, when I busted my elbow, I was given the choice. It's like, you can have surgery, you cannot have surgery. And I'm like, okay, give me the lowdown. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
And I said, well, if you don't have surgery, then it'll heal up. You'll have probably 30% or so less strength in your left arm. But otherwise, it'll look a little funny, but you'll be a little weaker. That'll be about it. If you have the surgery, you're probably going to be out of commission pretty much for like 4 months. You're going to have to go through physical therapy, blah, blah, blah. But you'll be back to 100% or better when it's over. And I'm like, not even a choice.
Yeah, no choice.
Give me the surgery.
Right.
And it's like, I think we're coming to a point where a lot of people wouldn't do that because they're like, oh man,
I don't need
4
it.
months?
Maybe they're like, I don't need it.
Yeah, I don't need it. Like, I'm not that strong anyway. 4 months is a long time. It's not a long time.
It's not long.
4 months
to have 100% of the strength.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a minor inconvenience.
if you appreciate the strength of your arms.
Correct.
But as a man, right? And this is what I'm saying. What's happened to men?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's also not a question.
Yeah.
Somebody says that, I'm like, okay, 4 months, but I get it back. I get my arms back. Because like to have your upper body as a man is like, whoa, no, I need that. Like,
exactly.
That's important.
So I have often taken for granted being strong. Mm-hmm. And I've always been strong. I've always been, and I'm not bragging. This is not me bragging. This is me just saying, this is how my life has gone.
Anybody who gets around you in person is going to be like, do not fuck with this guy. Like, this guy will fuck you up.
I am a big time hugger, but yeah, don't fuck with me. It's just been a natural thing. I've never really thought about it. Mm-hmm. It's never. But then you become the guy at work that everybody brings their stuck bottles to.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they start bringing other people, and they're like, "Hey, here, give this to Dave. Watch him open it."
Right.
And I'm just like, and give it back. And it's like, nobody could open it. When the movers came to move our stuff, I've got some kettlebells at the house. I don't think I talked about this on air.
No,
okay.
No.
So I've got some ridiculous kettlebells. So one of them is, I've got 2 matching kettlebells that are both about 108 pounds each.
Okay.
And then I've got one that's like really heavy. It's like 175 pounds,
Jesus.
180 pounds, something like that. And the 2, 100 pounders, I pick them up and one in each hand, carry it around, a little farmer's walk, little, shoulder work, whatever, they're not that heavy to me.
Right.
And I forget that, I legitimately forget these things.
These guys got two guys lifting the kettlebell.
They brought in a refrigerator dolly and put them individually on the refrigerator dolly to load them as 4 strapping young college-age guys.
No.
And they're using a refrigerator dolly. So they come into my office, they take one, and it took 2 of them to get it on the dolly. They wheel it out. I walk over to the other one, pick it up with one hand, carry it out to the front door so it would be easier for them the next time.
Right.
I'm like, are you kidding me right now? It's like, wow.
Because there is not the need, but see there is the need, and the need is a spiritual need. The need is maybe perhaps no longer a physical need, and that's why it takes so much more effort. I mean, look, I'm in this office coding every day. But every morning I'm in the gym before I come here. And I tell people that the gym is my church. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand like what I'm getting at with that.
Well, think about what you do in church.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of rituals.
There's a... First off, it's getting grounded into some sort of systematic, like, okay, this is what I can come back to. The same things, the things that I know. I mean, even down to, like, one of the reasons why I was so glad, like, this particular gym was that, like, they have the exact same weights as my last gym.
Like the same brand or what?
Same brand.
Nice.
Right? So, like, the same plates. And there's something to that, to where it's like this continuation of a ritual, right? So, like, I was at my last gym for 7 years. Now here, same weights, I can do kind of the same ritual, and that's what it is. That there's something there. There's I don't know what it is. It's because we evolved over millions of years, kind of having to do the same things, whether it was hunting, whether it was farming, these difficult manual labor types of things.
Right.
And that was man's work.
Manual labor.
Well, there you go. I don't think they come from the same root, but yes.
I don't know. I'm throwing it out there.
Fair enough.
So think about
You're
this.
Louis Farrakhan in this bitch.
So you go to the gym, right? And they're, like Nautilus stations. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people do circuit training, right? So think about it in the circuit training context, Nautilus stations, whatever. Stations of the Cross.
Sure, absolutely.
So it is very much we're going from this to this to this to connect to an inner core, a spiritual component, physical component.
Yeah, sure.
And there is also, if you're looking at it from a chemistry standpoint, the endorphin release that is related to both, spiritual experiences as well as physical experiences. Very similar. So I totally am on board with the whole gym as church thing.
Well, church in the wild. I think that's...
that's Ted Nugent's thing right there.
Yeah, that's it. So I do think that there is the natural impulse. That male impulse is being denied. And I think that aspect of masculinity, or that aspect of the male impulse, if it's the male sexual impulse, so then you have, the porn on Tumblr. If we start to remove that, if all masculinity becomes toxic masculinity, we're really asking for a very, very fucked up society.
Yeah. And that's exactly what has happened. And that actually probably connects the two better than, like, when I was thinking through, like, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Right.
And I was thinking of the connections between these two things. That point probably does a better job of stitching this whole thing together than anything I thought of all day, which is...
So there you go.
I know. It's fantastic. I love when that shit happens, man. It's phenomenal. But you're absolutely right that what we're doing is we are toxifying all masculinity.
Exactly.
That is doom, my friend.
Because you don't, and I think it goes back to imagining society as that fire, as that central campfire, because it still is the central campfire. Whether people understand it or not, I mean, there are probably some people who are watching this right now who are watching it in a sort of perhaps a family setting. Perhaps they're watching it. It's a couple watching it. Maybe your kids are running around, and you're watching, or you watch something else. You're watching it with your friends. This is the digital fire. Mm-hmm. You look at where people have their television. Many people have their televisions above their fireplace in their home. Yeah. Sort of above their mantle, mounted in that place. Otherwise, it's in the location, that central location that people sit. They sit around it. That otherwise you would be sitting around a fire. This became the radio, which had, it had a light in the dial. The dials were lit up in the big old radios. Now we have the television. We can't get around that. And so this idea of these men who are on the outskirts, who are sitting back with their sort of maybe sideways, with a glimpse into the darkness.
With their spears.
Maybe their spears are down next to them, but they're near them.
Right.
Or on them. And so that the women and the children can be involved inwardly.
Yeah.
That they have a glance to the outward and a glance to the inward. That is still reality.
Yeah. Why? Because on average, the typical man is far larger, taller, stronger,
absolutely.
faster,
Absolutely,
than the average woman. And no amount of social justice is going to change biology. They simply are. And when you take a man, someone who was born male, and you give them gender reassignment surgery, and then they go and play women's
and they
basketball.
kill everybody.
Was it basketball?
I saw one that was handball recently, and this bitch was killing them.
Oh yeah,
Killing.
bigger than I am, and she's just crushing the competition because she's in hey, if I was in there, so I went to India a few times. And I love India. India's great. Great people.
Never
food is
been.
amazing.
Never been.
Dude.
I love Indian food though. So
Yeah. We gotta have some Indian food.
Yeah.
During we're running out
not
of time in
during.
December.
Not during.
I'm just saying, we're running out of time during December
Yeah,
because December is the fattening. So my arm has been out of commission. I have been.
Dude, I was just saying the other day, I was like, oh man, January, February, I hope is going to be cutting down some weight. Otherwise what's going to happen is March and April is going to roll around and I'm going to be jacked out of my mind because I've got some fat stores that I've been building up being here in New Hampshire.
Yeah, so you and me both, beginning of January, we are going to have some kind of
Indian.
No, I'm just saying we're going to have some kind of body fat competition. Or something,
that'd be good.
Because we can't do pounds lost because that's just not a fair comparison.
No. We could do
percentages or something.
Percentages. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So we'll do something like that. That'll be fun. I mean, our viewers can participate.
Yeah,
it'll be good. Because it's been crazy. This has been an excellent excuse to eat 5 cheesecakes.
I get that.
But the point being that, you take a look at the biology of everything, and sure, people, if a person makes a decision that they would like to present themselves in a particular way,
right?
Great, rock on, more power to you.
Yes.
Have fun. If we're saying that, the average bell curve of men and women is somehow completely equal, that is completely false. Scientifically, it is just absolutely wrong. And this is why men throughout the entirety of our history have been the protectors and the defenders and the fighters because we are biologically equipped, physically equipped for that work. And that's just the way things have been.
It's also, I think I think it also is probably carried on the Y chromosome because as men actually need to be given responsibility, especially young men.
Yeah.
Need
real responsibility
that really matters.
Yeah.
They really need to be stationed on the edge of that fire where they really need to be paying attention or everybody gets eaten by a tiger. They really, really, really fucking need it.
Yeah.
It's because if you don't get it, then you become an incel. That's where that shit comes from.
Yeah.
Because what is confidence? Confidence is I pass the rite of passage.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Because I can take on any challenge.
Because all of the men in your community, your confidence comes from all of the men in your community. That's what the rite of passage was about.
Yeah.
You would do whatever that thing was that made you a man, and then in front of everybody.
Yeah.
All the men that you had grown up with, the fucking down to the chief, would be carrying you on their shoulders, saying, he is a man now. He is a man. Yeah. That's where confidence comes from.
We had that exact thing on the debug team when I was in Charlotte. We had what we called the circle of trust. And to get into the, and I'm telling you, it was like they would draw it on the whiteboard. They would actually take a marker and they would draw it on the whiteboard. They said, this is the circle of trust. Your team sits in here. This is you. You're out here outside the circle. And they give you one thing to work on. It was, a memory dump, whatever. It was a thing that was insanely hard.
Right.
That took a tremendous amount of diligence. This wasn't a get lucky and fix it. This was a you legitimately have to do the work.
Yes.
It's a proof of work is what it was.
Yes.
It's like, here's a thing you've never seen before.
Yes.
If you figure this out, then you can enter the circle of trust.
Yes.
And, when we did, it was that feeling of, oh my God, not only do I have the acceptance of my peers, not only am I now up here, first of all, now I have their acceptance, and now I have the confidence that I can go as deep as I need to go. I can do what needs to be done to get the job done, no matter what.
Yeah, this is it's mission critical.
Right.
See, that's huge.
Yeah.
And whatever, I don't care. That's not built into the female. That's not carried on the X chromosome. Sorry, it's not. Right? That's on the Y chromosome. And it's on the Y chromosome for some very good reasons, because look, we don't live as long. There's a lot of things about men, right? Like, we are evolved to be, to a certain degree, expendable.
Yeah.
And we really are, because in a community, you really only need to continue the community. You need one man and multiple women.
Right.
That's just the biological truth.
Right. We don't gestate the young.
No.
We are built to do the manual labor, to do the defensive work. We're not designed to live that long.
And so we have to work with the material that we're given. And I feel like, unfortunately, when in the society that we're in, the fallacy or the myth or the blind spot, if you will, is the idea that we are no longer sitting around a fire and there is no longer darkness where there are predators. The state has told us, rely upon us. We will protect you from what is in the darkness. But the fact of the matter is, they are what is in the darkness.
Yeah.
They are the predators. Those are the predators.
Yep.
And so we're in this very interesting time where it should be no surprise that that sort of individual, that archetype of individual who would be the one with their spear in hand, sitting on the boundary between the darkness and the community, protecting the community. That's exactly who's being destroyed.
Exactly. Intentionally so.
Intentionally destroyed. And you have to ask, to whose benefit is it to destroy that archetype? To me, just the tigers. Yeah. Just the tigers who want to eat the children.
Yeah.
No one else's it's to no one else's benefit to destroy that archetype. To call that toxic, you got to step back for a second and question and be like, wait a minute. Qui bono? Who benefits?
Mm-hmm.
Who benefits when I take away the hunter, the warrior? The only person that benefits is the person that's trying to get past them.
Yeah. And that is the state. That is the
it's a predator.
Ruling. Well, to me, it's the ruling elite, right?
Yeah.
And now, let's rewind. Let's jumble history up a little bit. This is going to be fun. And let's use something from today in a similar situation from history. So back in the day, you will recall that the black community actually had much, much stronger family units than
for sure.
the white community.
There was I think after the Civil War, right after the Civil War, I think into actually the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, there was a higher percentage of white children born out of wedlock than black children.
That is correct. Absolutely. And that was because of what? There were a lot of strong black fathers that were at home. And
because there was the fire and there was a lot of darkness on the outside.
Yeah.
A lot of darkness.
Well, and so at different times in history, there was more darkness and less darkness, and depended on where you lived and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But culturally, it seemed to be a much stronger family unit led by much stronger male figures.
100%.
And you had the father of the family who was propped up as, oh, daddy gets the good chair.
Yep.
Duh.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Of course he gets the good chair. And mom's taking care of the house. Mom's doing, whatever. And it was an archetypal family unit, and it worked. And it worked great. Yep. Then, we had the government come in, and, we replaced the strong black father with welfare and the state and different programs. So if we take the toxic masculinity, the toxic masculine archetype that we have today, and we apply that to black history, then suddenly we're racist, because the strong black male archetype in today's standards would be toxic masculinity.
That's toxic. Yes, exactly.
You back talk your daddy?
Yeah.
You right across the face.
Yeah.
But back in the day, that was fine.
Yeah.
Kid learned his lesson and grew up to be a strong black father.
Yeah.
Today, no. Due to be in jail, taken away from his family. And, no, I am not advocating beating children. I am not saying that at all. Right. I'm just saying that when you have a strong family, and certainly I am not saying let's enforce this with the state. That is the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that culturally, we are being manipulated to think of what historically has worked extremely well as toxic.
Well, I think there's an interesting aspect to that, right? Because, and this is true in my own family. I mean, my grandfather was he was a Tuskegee Airman. You know what I mean? Like during World War II, fighter pilot. When the black fighter pilots, you go through the Tuskegee yearbook right there. Incredibly abusive individual, particularly to my father. But he was also in some ways he was a holdover. I mean, he's from Georgia, a holdover from a previous era when to sort of even understand the stakes, right? So the stakes of, and it's such a difficult place to put yourself. The idea that here you are, black man, let's say in the South, after the Civil War, raising a son.
Oh my God!
Right?
Nightmare.
And he's, it's God, it's so crazy because I'm feeling this even myself with, I have a daughter, and now I have another one on the way. And I was so, my wife was like upset that she wanted a son both times. She cried in both of the, sonograms where they said what the sex of the child was. She cried both times because she wanted a son so bad. Me, I was kind of like sigh of relief, because raising a son in this environment right now, it's got to be similar to what a black man in the South would feel, knowing that he had a son in that time. To be like, there's really a chance if I raise a son who does not have his shit together, that in my lifetime, I'm going to see my son hanging from a tree.
And I think that a lot of specifically black families go through that today, which is why they tell their children, if the cops pull you over, you put your hands up on the wheel or the dash or whatever, and you don't make a move until that guy comes up and he tells you what to do, and you are respectful and yes sir and no sir and I'm sorry sir and everything else, because the alternative is they get shot.
But see, I think I think a lot of that is an artifact. I think it's an artifact because while we do hear those stories of that happening, I think it happens a lot less. I think that it was a reality at a certain, in certain regions and in a certain time in American history.
Yeah.
I think that it was like, no, this is an actual reality that if you're wilding out, and that's it. That's going to be it for you. You're done. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's this certain aspect of like I'm beating the shit out of you because I'm scared to death that I'm going to see something terrible happen to you. And it's just I mean that's a horrible place to be, like, and I'm glad that we're not there, and I'm not saying that's positive masculinity, but to sort of not want to examine that at all, and to push to the side I think what it ultimately is right now we are denying that there is the darkness outside of the fire.
Yeah,
we've gotten very comfortable.
Yeah.
To believe that there is no darkness out there and that, oh, it's all good and just enjoy yourself. And it's very much the grasshopper and the ant sort of situation, because that's not true. The darkness is always there waiting.
Yeah.
And if you don't have men in your society, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked. If you don't have real men in your society, if you have let that go away, you're fucked. It's why people should take note of the Swiss. Take note of the Swiss. The fact that every man, Swiss man, has a government issued, because he was in the Swiss Army, a government issued automatic rifle in his home. That he took home when he was done with his military service. But they are a neutral country.
Sounds like a militia.
They're a neutral country. They're a neutral country.
Yeah.
They have 100% male ownership of automatic military weapons, but they're a neutral country. See, because they know that the darkness is just outside those Swiss borders, because it is Germany, Italy. They know the whole thing. Eastern Europe is on this side. They know.
And they have not forgotten their history.
Never.
And that's the thing that just kills me when I hear people talking. It's like they go to college and apparently history is not something they teach anymore. And then you have stars like Piers Morgan, right?
Right.
And he's debating, and he's saying, he's debating a gun person. He's like, are you telling me that you actually think your government is going to, take over, use force against you, whatever, and you have to defend yourself against your government?
At some point, they are, yes.
They have on multiple occasions. And I'm not just talking about the Revolutionary War. No. I am talking about multiple times throughout our history,
sure, of course.
Up until recent times.
Civil War, Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah. And we also had the,
Mormons. Talk to the Mormons about it.
Talk to the Mormons. Talk to the black community who were, shot
Fair
down
enough.
in droves. Talk to the what was it? West Virginia, Penn State.
No, Kent State.
Kent State. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Yes, Kent State.
Kent State. We had National Guardsmen freaking firing
on students.
Killing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were protesting. Because they were saying things the state didn't like.
That's right.
Oh, look at these horrible young people out here saying things that we don't like.
That's right.
Let's kill them.
Yeah.
Oh, but no, our government's never going to do anything against us? Are you freaking kidding me?
Well,
were you born yesterday?
It's the nature of government. I mean, democide, being killed by government, by your own government, is the second, in the 20th century, was the second leading cause of non-natural death after war.
Wow.
In the 20th century, to be killed by your own government. And so
unbelievable.
And so it's just like, dude, numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard. To quote Jay-Z, you know? Just check the scoreboard. You're looking for who the killers are.
Yep.
Who I need to be worried about. Well, let's look at the biggest killers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, own government? Yeah, okay. Well, then maybe there's some things we need to think about.
Yep.
But in the end, who's going to protect you? Who's going to protect you? It's the same guy who's opening the jar.
Same guy who's opening the jar, same guy who's holding the door for you.
That's what I'm saying.
Same guy who's the nice, polite, gentle giant person who you want to hate him because you think he's a Republican or something, and he's actually going to protect your ass.
And the most interesting part about that is that's what we fucking live for.
Yeah.
We live for that fucking moment. Real men live for that moment. So why would you want to sideline that individual? Why would you want to make that individual feel like he was less than? Why would you not want to create more of those individuals? Because they're not asking for much.
No.
They're willing to just chill out. They're willing to chill out.
I would posit that real men don't ask for much ever.
Ever.
They just do it themselves. And, that's ableist. That's whatever. But it's the ethos. The ethos is do it yourself. Make your own things, do your own things, fix your own problems, live up to your word, live up to your responsibility. Take responsibility. That is the biggest freaking thing that drives me crazy is that people do not want to take responsibility. And then if there are consequences to their decisions,
right,
they don't want to accept the consequences.
Well, that was a Scott Adams thing.
Right. Exactly.
That was exactly what it was.
And it's what drove everybody to Tumblr, where they were like, I want to be considered a cat by everybody in the world. Okay, great. You can go be considered a cat and you and your friends can all be cats and that's awesome. But why are you going to force the rest of the world to acknowledge you as a cat at gunpoint?
Right.
Really? Why can't you just go have your little cat party?
Well, why would we take away the places where these people... That's what I'm the most worried about.
Well, we're not. And that's the great thing about the free market is there are at least 20 websites that there's a graphic that is circulating around Tumblr that lists by category.
Good.
Like if your stuff is safe for work, you can go to these 5 websites. If your stuff is not safe for work, you can go to these 12 websites. If your stuff is fetish based, you can go to these 4 websites. It's just ching, 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 ching all the way down the list. And it's here's where everybody's going when they leave Tumblr because Tumblr's dying. This is its swan song. This is the death knell. This is the end of Tumblr. Glad to have known you. You're the next MySpace. Goodbye.
So there's a talk that this guy, Juan Bennett, who's the guy who came up with IPFS, where all of our files for our podcast are hosted, Interplanetary File System, and Filecoin, which is coming, which may really disrupt the entire cryptocurrency community as a whole. It's a recent talk, and he's talking about a post-internet society. And I think that's what we're talking about. If you want to polish me off here, because we're almost done. We're 5 minutes out.
No homo.
Yeah, we're done. So,
no, you said polish me off. I said no homo.
Okay, fair enough. Well, whatever. I let that pass. So I think that we may be approaching. So they talk about Web 1, Web 2, and all of this. I think we're approaching a post-internet society. The basis of that is, my daughter, she's 3. today
She is the cutest. Oh my God.
Thank you. She's been able to manipulate her tablet, but today I saw her for the first time be able to manipulate the touchpad on her mom's Mac.
Oh, cool.
On her mom's MacBook. Perfectly. She got it. She understood exactly how to do it. And I was like, okay. She has no idea what an internet is.
No.
She has no idea that there is a such thing as an internet. Like, we'll be driving along, and all of a sudden she'll be like, my video's not playing on my tablet anymore. And I'll say, oh, yeah, because we don't have internet now. You got to either play a game, watch something you've downloaded from Amazon, whatever it is. And she's fine with that. She'll do it. She gets it. But we've approached a time where we're in pretty soon, that's not even going to be a reality for her. There's not going to be a place where I do not have access to the internet. She's 3.
Right.
She's 3.
Yeah.
By the time she's a teenager, that's not going to exist.
I know.
So we're reaching a time where it's a post-internet society where it's like the idea that I can't get all the data that I need at the bandwidth that I need for whatever I need right at this moment just doesn't exist.
Yep.
For the consumer. For a business, whatever. But for a consumer, which even includes streaming like we're doing now.
Yeah.
Which for me, I was at the cutting edge of streaming media. What we're doing now, that we're doing this for free. Oh, dude, I was building out servers for corporations where to do this I'd be like, oh, that's going to be $20,000.
Yeah.
For the evening, for you want to do 2 hours, $20,000.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I know. And that was the reality. And now the reality is that our economy is hyper-focused on the internet, and we are giving away stuff for free that used to be unbelievably expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here at home on my little, network router going, should I enable large frames or not? Right. And then, and there's an entire generation of people that have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right. We're coming into a very interesting time. And so it's in some ways, I think we're seeing it with crypto because we're seeing the final shakeout. I think this is the final shakeout before real adoption.
Do you want to know how to really destroy crypto?
I don't want to it's not going to ever be destroyed, but go ahead.
Embed some kiddie porn somewhere in the blockchain.
Supposedly there is kiddie porn in the Bitcoin blockchain already.
No shit.
Yes.
Somebody beat me to the idea.
Yeah, there is in the op return. There's several like where you can stitch them back together like in the old days of Usenet. Like so supposedly there's already kiddie porn in there. Yeah.
So where's the federal mandate to rewind to that point in history?
No, they won't do it. I think that it's this whole thing is a culmination. And I think that we're going to come back to a time. It's a reset button. We're going to need men.
Yeah.
We're really going to need men. I really like, and we'll talk about this more probably privately. I really like that. That Microsoft is using these rite of passage ideals. I really like it. Right. Okay.
I don't know how acceptable that would be today.
Right.
Considering we do have militaries around the world adjusting their requirements to make it more fair for smaller, lighter female people and I'm just like, really? Is the enemy going to be that accommodating?
Right. Exactly.
No, they're not.
Well, this is all about competitive advantage. This is it's going to be an interesting. We're going to see what's going to win out. I think in the end, what's going to win out is humanity's going to win out, the old rules are going to be the best rules. We're at 10 o'clock.
You know why?
Why?
Because we're awesome.
So, if as you can see, these were 2 great bottles of wine. If you'd like to contribute bottles of wine to us, you can go to vinarmani.com/wine. That'll take you to wink.com. Go ahead and get a gift certificate. Send it to show@vinarmani.com. We will see you again next week. Do you have any
No. We will see you next year.
Oh, God damn.
That's right.
We will see you next fucking year.
That's right.
2019. We will see you for Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown.
Everyone have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,
Kwanzaa,
whatever it is that you want to do. Please make it the absolute best, because the important things in life are not things.
Ooh, they're people.
They are.
I love it. All right, see you guys next year.